Oh my goodness, it's Tuesday. I'm trying to figure out where we are in the calendar. It's May 19th, 2026. We're at the Poduty Live Podcast Theater in downtown Toronto for another episode of Poduty in the News. I'm Jeff, your host. We've got 6 great stories headed your way. I got Amani Roberts joining me, DJ, author, professor, entrepreneur. We're going to hear all about it after the theme song. Amani, do you know what time it is?
It's time to get going.
What time is it? What time is it? It's time for Poduty and the News. Poduty and the News. The only live news podcast about podcasting from the stage. Poduty and the News. Poduty and the News. The only live news podcast about podcasting from the stage.
Amani Roberts, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I am excited to be here.
So glad to have you here. I was going through AmaniExperience.com, all kinds of things. You got DJ, author, professor, entrepreneur. You've got tremendous stage time, presentations, really encouraging creators to get up there and really push their boundaries. And tell us a little bit about what you've been working on and what you're building and what is the Amani Experience?
So the Amani Experience is an entertainment-based company where I focus on working as a fractional artist manager with musicians and some authors on monetizing their artwork. I'm also a professional DJ, music business professor, and author of 2 books. The latest of one is called The Quiet Storm, and that's a USA Today best-selling book. That is what my company is about, and that's who I am.
Well, that's real easy. It's AmaniExperience.com. And check it out. When did the book just come out?
The book came out February 2025, so we celebrated our 1-year birthday. And the project for this year is we're going to turn the book into a trivia game, which I know you would love.
Oh, I would definitely love that. And if people want to, is that going to be a local event or are you going to start to stream that so people can watch from all over the world?
So it'll be a trivia game, kind of old school, like it's card-based with a little board, and there'll be some music implemented. So you have questions, you might have some musical questions, and that's how it'll work. So it won't be like a live streaming game, but it'll be more back in the day when you do like, not Kahoot, but like you do Monopoly, stuff like that. You play with your friends and family. I'm trying to think of the game where you would guess the clues. People would guess the clues, but stuff like that. Yes.
Yeah, oh, that sounds like a lot of fun, like a board game / card game, and you can do it on road trips or family game night.
Exactly. Yeah, family game night would be perfect.
Awesome. Well, we'll put the link to the show notes. We also build a crew page. Anybody who's ever been on Poduty in the News gets their own dedicated landing page on the podcast page, and it'll have links to all of Amani's links, all the social profiles, the AmaniExperience.com. So check it out. Check out my guests. Support them for coming. We're so excited to have them come on the show. Make sure you go ahead and support them and check out what they're working on as well. Amani, are you ready to get into our stories?
Yes. Let's go. I'm ready.
Here we go. We got story number 1 comes from the Podcasting Today website, and it's an opinion piece. Podcasting continues to evolve beyond traditional audio and video formats, according to a new opinion piece by Alexandra Forsyth. The article points to growing interest in live events, hybrid content, and in-person audience experience as creators look for stronger audience connection. Forsyth also highlights the rise of micro creators, brand partnerships, and performance-based storytelling as part of a larger shift happening across the entertainment and media industry. And this speaks right to my language, and it speaks to all the experiences that you've had up on stages. As this is really becoming the future model for podcasts and for smaller independent creators. They're looking for live events, live stages, conferences, places to fill in entertainment, and they're using podcasters in those events and those conferences. So, think about, where does your event fit in? Where does your podcast fit into different types of events? And how can you position yourself in live events to really get in front of new audiences?
Yeah, I think this is a trend that's been growing for a while. I've kind of spent the last 3 years at this one major conference in the meetings and events industry, Meeting Professionals International. And I would have a live podcast show on the floor. We would have 2 sets of episodes, one in the morning, one in the afternoon before each general session. And people would come by, they'd take pictures, they'd be looking. Then if maybe you're running late or you're in your room, you can actually watch it live on like the brand's LinkedIn or Facebook page. So that's the whole beauty of live. So this is right up my alley. I agree. And I do think that micro creators are going to be more and more important as it comes to brand partnerships too.
I love that. And I love that, when I think of conferences, I'm turning 50 in a month, right? I'm going to be June 12th. It's my birthday. Anybody wants to pen me a letter.
Congrats.
But when I went to, I also worked in automotive, and they have giant conferences in automotive. And 20 years ago, if you went to a conference, a lot of times it'd be a side stage with a panel of 4 people, probably, placed by the sponsors of the event, people who paid tens of thousands of dollars to sponsor the event. And it was just a really dry conversation, kind of scripted by, the corporate guidelines. And that was kind of the entertainment that you got at conferences. But recently, in the last 5-6 years, you're really seeing them pull away from these panels and putting live podcasts into the center of the conference as part of the entertainment for the conference. There's different types of celebrities and different types of personalities in different industries. And those people are kind of like micro celebrities within that industry. And that audience comes to see them now. That audience comes to see that podcast of that industry podcast that they listen to every Wednesday on their morning commute. They're coming to conferences now to see that show live. And we're kind of touching on that here. And I just think that's a tremendous opportunity for a lot of podcasters to tap into events that are already happening.
Yeah, I think they should put them on the main stage. Number one, have them in the middle of a general session. Like if you have a keynote speaker, maybe you have it either right before or right after the keynote speaker, and then figure out a way to get the audience involved. If you're taking questions, there's some great tools out there that can allow you to accept questions from the audience so that it can be as interactive as possible.
Yeah, and speaking of a place to have interactivity and a major event, this place is a brand new theater. It's 300 seats, and they're building it around content creators. This comes to us from the short list. Curzon has announced plans for Curzon Chelsea, a new flagship entertainment venue opening in London in late 2026. The 20,000 square foot space will include a 300-seat auditorium, podcast studios, recording booths, flexible event areas, workshop rooms, writers' rooms, and cafe-style gathering spaces. Curzon says the project reflects how film, podcasting, live events, and digital media increasingly overlap as entertainment companies rethink what modern creative spaces look like.
Yeah, this one's another good one. Because if you think about it, traditionally, most entertainment venues, really their bread and butter is their evening events. What's happening from like 7 or 8 p.m. to midnight, basically. And so now they're recognizing there's huge profit potential if they actually make their event space flexible, number one, and two, available all day so that they can maximize revenue. You're going to be there anyway, so why not open it up, have podcast studios during the day, event space, so if there's day meetings or things like that, people can come during the day. So it makes sense. This is a nice size venue too. 20,000 square feet is a pretty good size. And they have the most up-to-date technology too. So they might be surprised. They might do more business in terms of smaller events and during the day than in the evening time, which would be okay because it's probably higher profit margin.
Yeah, and I love the forward thinking of this event, of this space. They're really thinking of and leaning into local creators, people who can use a space like this every day or all during the week. You don't need a 2,000 seat theater or a 17,000 seat arena. These smaller venues fill a whole different need that isn't really addressed in a lot of communities. And they're so forward thinking. They're putting in recording spaces, podcast studios, cafe places to meet up. There's smaller rooms where you can probably get a room for a couple hours if you want to record a remote podcast with a guest who's coming to town. They're thinking 24 hours a day. What I have here is a little 1,600 square foot theater, and if I'm not open, I still have rent to pay. I still have electricity to pay. I got bills to pay, whether or not I'm using the space or not. And like you mentioned, Amani, they're thinking 24 hours a day. How can I make money during the day, in the evening, in the nighttime, and have this thing really be an asset to the community and something that, it gets used more than just twice a week at 7 p.m.
Exactly.
whenever there's a main show.
Yeah, exactly. Very smart, very forward thinking. I love it.
Forward thinking. How about all the way to the rock or the punk rock music Hall of Fame? We got No Doubt. This comes to us from Neon. Adrian Young of No Doubt appeared at the Punk Rock Museum in Las Vegas for a live podcast event tied to the Fully Vented podcast. The event included a live recording and audience Q&A focused on the history of drummers connected to Orange County Drum and Percussion, a shop associated with early 2000s punk scene. The appearance was offered free with museum admission ahead of No Doubt's scheduled performance at the Sphere.
Yeah, that's a good one. So, of course, the Sphere, that's good. But look at this, a museum. It's a very niche museum, by the way, but very, very highly rated. Great museum. Once again, they get people to the venue with a live podcast. People can interact with Adrian Young. And then, people get exposed to the museum. They can say they're there. If they have tickets to the specific date and time, that becomes a collectible. There's so many things they can activate by this experience.
And it's a great way for podcasters to think about, how can I tap into current events? And maybe this is on a bigger scale than most people operate in their hometowns, but they were going to they did do a residency at the Sphere. Yeah. And this was in the same town. As Amani pointed out, I didn't even know this was actually in Las Vegas. So it makes total sense. If you were coming in for the Sphere show, maybe you extend your stay a little bit. You can catch a podcast at the Punk Rock Museum, see Adrian Young, see the full podcast, see the interview live, maybe do a meet and greet afterwards, then go to the show. Well, I mean, what a better way to spend a week or so. But really, the lesson is the podcast capitalized on that current event and made something out of it. Kind of, they used to call that newsjacking back 20 years ago. This is really, you're taking something that's really in the public eye. Everybody knew that No Doubt was doing the Sphere tour, and this museum happened to be in the same town. They capitalized on that.
Yeah, I wonder if they created packages or bundles so that you could get a ticket to the show also, and the museum, and a meet and greet. Like that meet and greet bundle could have sold for a good amount of money. Like you say, the meet and greet at the museum, then you watch the podcast, then you get a ticket to the Sphere, maybe discounts to local restaurants. Like that would be a good package or bundle that could really, really elevate the live experience even more.
Yeah, that's the kind of thinking that we're trying to get podcasters to think about. How do you get outside the box? And instead of just thinking, I'm going to build an audience and read ads for Purple Mattress or MeUndies or Sherry's Berries, what else can I do? And in this case, this podcast capitalized with the museum and a current event and really rode those coattails into creating a spectacular event.
Yeah. Plus, anything you can do to attach your name, your brand to the Sphere is worth its weight in gold.
Yeah, absolutely. Well played. Speaking of well played, let's go to some Olympians. This comes to us from In the Snow channel on YouTube. The Whiteout podcast recently hosted its first live podcast event at the Snow Center in Hempstead following the 2026 Winter Olympics. Hosts Dom Killinger and Rob Stewart were joined by Olympic athletes, broadcasters, and professional skiers and snowboarders for a live audience conversation covering Olympic competition, injuries, travel, crashes, training, and the realities of professional winter sports. The event also highlighted youth sports organization Snow Camp and included support from several industry partners.
See, this event here highlights just the beauty of collaboration. So you have the Whiteout podcast. They have their own brand, their own community. Then they get to tag all these Olympic athletes and get exposure to their communities, grow their community organically. Plus, then you have the organization Snow Camp. So that's another organization you can collaborate with. So it's probably a good 5 or 6 different collaborations within one live event. So you get exposed to all these different people's audiences. You grow your community, your platform, and then they're sharing it. People are finding you, and you can create content for weeks, months, based on just this one episode.
Yeah, they're capitalizing on each other, right? There's a charity, a camp for kids. There's the Olympians who the kids are looking up to. there's this podcast who tells the stories about the Olympians and maybe works on behalf of this camp and this community that you're talking about. That's what they're building. And they're leveraging that to reach an audience, to bring in more people from 3 different places, the podcast fans, like you mentioned, the Olympians and the campers, to build something bigger than just themselves. So, think about who can you partner with, who's in your neighborhood that you can collaborate with and work with them to get something going locally.
Yeah. Plus, like, athletes have some phenomenal stories about their journey, how they made it. And to make it to the Olympics, they each have a unique and probably inspiring story. So that would carry the episode. You wouldn't really need to prepare much. Just tell us your story, ups and downs. What are you looking forward to? How did it go? Like that just lends itself to easy conversation for a live event.
And I hear there's some great stories from the Olympic Village that happens every year.
You said that. I wasn't going to mention that, but you mentioned that.
That's why I'm going to this one. I want to hear what happens in Olympic Village.
They say it stays in Olympic Village. Not really, but anyways.
Well, let's keep it going. And a lot of, we try to tie these stories into Amani's experience and really parallel them with what he's building and what he's done on stage. And this was a great example of at a conference, just talking and addressing the audience in a specific industry, a specific niche. And this comes to us from TechCrunch on YouTube as well. And the TechCrunch's Equity podcast recently recorded a live episode at HumanX conference in San Francisco featuring Amazon Chief Security Officer Steve Schmidt. During the conversation, see how I told you all my words run together?
Yeah.
During the conversation, Schmidt discussed how AI is reshaping cybersecurity, including concerns around AI agents, internal company risks, containment systems, and human oversight. The episode also explored startup security practices and how companies are adjusting to rapidly evolving AI technologies.
This is another example of just a conference. They did it the right way, actually, because, they had them on the main stage, a live interview, and audience interaction, which is perfect. And I'm sure it got a lot of live impressions. It's going to continue to get a lot of replays. People were probably tweeting or chatting about it online at the same time. And so it probably really elevated the value of that conference and that session. So they did it right. Plus, they had a notable person who hopefully was able to speak as freely as possible about the current issues.
I mentioned the panelists that they used to have at these conferences years ago, and now they're replacing it with keynotes and podcasts. And the one thing that we're kind of touching on a little bit is, and you kind of really just hit on it a little bit, Amani, was the lifespan of this performance, of being on this stage and at this conference. And the reason I'm saying that is because if you think about a panelist of 4 people, nobody talks about that after the panel's over. They're like, hey, how was your session? It was all right. I heard a couple people talking about something. But here's something where they're creating content that's going to live on beyond this live session. They've recorded it. They're going to release it over time, release it as podcast episodes. They're going to use it as an asset to start to promote next year's event, and probably even leading up to that. If they're going to do this again on the stage next year, I bet the person on stage starts promoting it for the next event earlier. Yeah. So it kind of snowballs. These types of things happening at conferences, recording podcasts on live stages, lives on well beyond that one time that it happens during the session. It happens over and over again as content that lives on in the podcast. It lives on in social media.
Yeah. Plus, let's think about, next year for the conference, this would be front and center for their advertisements, their video, their sizzle reel, to kind of inspire people. Well, you want to be here this upcoming year because you don't know who we're going to have on stage, and you want to be in the room when the conversations are happening. So it also lends itself to promoting next year's conference, which will increase registration and increase the value then also.
Yeah, a little FOMO. If you weren't here last year, this is what you missed. You better not miss it next year.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I warned you. This goes by so fast. This is our last story already. Story number 6. The Glitch Theater records live performance events for a future podcast series. This comes to us from Miss 604. And the Glitch Theater is presenting Arc 1 on May 23rd at the Roundhouse Performance Center in Vancouver. The live event features performances from 10 emerging artists presenting original prose, poetry, stories, and essays. Organizers say the show will include live mixed sound and music, and the entire performance will be recorded for a future podcast series later this year.
Yeah, this one here. So, when they say recorded, I'm thinking they're also going to be recording video and audio together. So this right here just lends itself to a very easy 10 episode season for Arc 1. They could put it on YouTube. Maybe each episode could be 10 or 15 minutes, especially if they get some behind the scenes of the poet or the person that's singing before, during, and after. Then they have the actual performance. That's a good 15 or 20-minute episode right there. You cut that up into 10 pieces. That's a good season's worth of content right there. Put it up on YouTube and your platform, the website. Maybe sell advertising, whatever you need to do. But that's what that sounds like to me, which is very, very another future thinking way to combine live events with podcasting.
Yeah, and this link in the show notes, it's still available. There is a contest to give away some tickets to this event too. So if you're in the Vancouver area, check out the link in the show notes. And I also think this is an event for special needs and disability artists. And they're really showcasing and focusing on talent from all over the place. Everybody can contribute and support to this. And they selected these 10 artists to present their original works. And I think it's just going to be a great event for put on by Miss 604.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I mean, anytime you have poetry and music all together, an essay, spoken word, that's a fun event.
Yeah, and they'll get to, like you mentioned, this could be, if there's 10 different artists, that could be 10 episodes of a podcast. You could have one event and you end up recording your next 10 episodes. You get 2.5 months worth of content out of one single episode. So I really love that strategy. I hope that's one that they're deploying based on this. But it's a one way to have a single event and stretch it out over weeks or months, just because you plan for it, you prep for it, and then you prep for the distribution of it too. So think long term. Don't just think, oh, one night, one event. One night could be multiple podcasts.
Yeah, save yourself some time, energy, be more effective, and seasons. You have your winter, summer, spring, fall seasons right here, done.
Awesome, Amani. This has been so much fun. We crushed these stories today. Some great insights. All your DJ and being a professor, your entrepreneur experience, writing, the author, the 2 books that you've penned. All those insights and expertise really went into these 6 stories tonight. I'm so grateful that you're able to join us. And I do something before we say goodbye is I turn the floor completely over to you. You can plug, promote, talk about anything you'd like. Amani, the floor is yours.
Well, I appreciate you having me, first of all, so thank you very much. If there's any type of creative out there, particularly musicians or authors who are looking to monetize their artwork, create a legacy, I work with many different types of people like musicians and authors to help them monetize. If you're a musician, your royalties, get you activated on all these different platforms and get the money that's owed to you. And authors will help you with completing the book and the book writing process and launching the book and then post-launch. So those are people I love to talk to. You can go to amaniexperience.com/call, set up a free call. I love to chat with you, see how I can help. And once again, just thank you for giving me the floor.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'll put the links in the show notes. amaniexperience.com. Do you remember what time it was?
It's time to get started.
What time is it? What time is it?